Sanctions. Let's speak to Tom Elliott, Senior Financial Analyst from the De Beer Group.
Bullish. That's a question that Tom Elliott, International Investment Strategist at De Beer.
Tom, really good to see you. I was just wondering just how long this can be sustained.
Do you think it could go further?
Michael, I do think it will go further.
That debate has not happened. And it's Greece's fault.
That's kind of called...
Hi, I'm going to introduce to you today Mr. Tom Elliott, who's the investment strategist at the De Beer Group. Tom's a leading light in terms of educated opinion on global financial markets and geopolitical issues. We have obviously a very pressing issue at the moment, which is the B word, or Brexit, dare I say it. And there's some very sort of salient points that I want to ask Tom about today. And this particular issue was sort of mentioned in the headlines a lot, Tom, earlier, or rather in Q4, the Irish backstop agreement, and it seems to sort of talked about less at the moment. However, it is a fundamental problem and a flaw in negotiations. Would you agree, or...?
It is. It's the dirty little secret of May's withdrawal bill, and the reason why it's failed twice so far. And that is, it relates to the fundamental question of when the EU, when the UK leaves the EU, where do you put the border with Ireland, which of course remains in the EU? Now, you've got to have, surely, some sort of customs border if Britain is going to go off and do free trade deals with America and around the world. Otherwise, grain from America would just come into the EU markets through Ireland. So not many people dispute that some form of border is required. But where do you put it? The logical solution is, of course, to have it between north and south. But that then has all sorts of problems for the Good Friday Agreement, because both the Dublin and the London governments have committed themselves in that agreement to actually helping the two regions, if you like, move together, and the people to become more interconnected and business to become more interconnected. Yeah. Putting a hard border goes totally against that. So the second option that was thought of was, well, how about a border in the Irish Sea? That would mean keeping Northern Ireland in the customs union along with the Republic, and probably still in the single market, because frankly there's not much point being a customs union unless you're in a single market. Besides, if you start going off and making in Northern Ireland lawnmowers, for instance, to different specifications, which you could if you left the single market of the EU, the Republic and the EU would probably want border controls to check you're not smuggling them in.
Right. How is the government, or it's the Brexiteers, right, that support no hard border?
That's right.
And Northern Ireland moves out with us. Southern Ireland obviously remains EU, and as I say, no hard border. So there's a control supposedly talked about of like a logistics solution, electronic. Yes. Footprint, if you like, of all movement of goods.
That's correct.
That's what they're floating, but the dirty little secret is that there is no solution at the moment.
Yes.
The real solution, like a software package that can be
The Brexiteers
used.
have told their supporters who voted Brexit that the Irish border problem is a fiction created by the EU to force Britain really to stay in the EU in somehow. In actual fact, it's not a fiction. The technology that they say exists, whereby you can have an open border and still be able to track American grain that's coming into Northern Ireland and stop it being re-exported into the Republic of Ireland. That technology does not exist. Now, the British government who need the supports of the European Research Group, which is comprised of such hardline Brexiteers, they, along with the European Research Group, is pretending it might one day exist because they need the ERG's votes in Parliament. They contribute quite a few MPs' votes. So you might say, well, why is the European Union going along with this fiction? They probably don't believe that such technology is ever going to exist. Well, this is where the Irish backstop come in. They say, okay, Northern Ireland remains in the single market, the UK and the customs union, so we're going to hug you very, very closely, and then one day when this technology comes along, we'll inspect it and the backstop ends, and you can have your soft border between the Republic and Northern Ireland and still go off and do your free trade deals. In reality, that day will probably never happen. The Brexiteers understand that, and that is why they are against May's deal, as does the DUP, the Protestant Party of Northern Ireland, so they have been, the EU has really called their bluff.
What might happen if May's deal now is rejected? Are we heading potentially more towards hard Brexit? Or I know that literally this week support for a second referendum has increased, and we saw marches last weekend in London. Do you have any sort of thought about which way it might go?
If May's deal is rejected a third time, then it's likely we will go with the leading two indicative votes that Parliament voted on yesterday.
Right.
The one that got the most was for a second referendum. It still didn't get half the MPs, but it got more votes than May's deal did the last time it was presented. And the second most favourite one was for a Labour policy sort of style, which is basically, if anyone can actually say what Labour's policy is, it seems to be May's deal plus remaining in the customs union. That was the second most favourite. Both of those would require asking the EU for a further extension, perhaps for another 18 months, to implement, and if it's the remaining customs union, to negotiate with the EU, during which time I think the UK would almost certainly have a new leader of the Conservative Party coming in as a Prime Minister, and would probably have a general election. And the question is then, would the parties be going to the polls on a proposition of vote for us and we will deliver the referendum that Parliament has indicated it won't, or will the two major parties have basically preferred to have given up the ghost and say we are both supporting the referendum, but not giving any indication as to where they think their supporters should vote, because it would be too internally divisive and both parties would just like to get the whole thing finished with.
And I'd just like to get your thoughts on interest rates, potentially the value of sterling, and what happened or what may pan out would affect those two elements.
Phil, this is a really interesting area, because if we were to get by unhappy chance, some sort of no deal, a crunch fall out of the EU, which I think is very unlikely, but if we do get it, sterling is likely to fall quite dramatically. Some banks think against the dollar 109, 1010 from its current 132 or whatever it is. So quite a drop. Now, instinctively, you might think, yikes, in that nasty situation with lots of forecasts then of recession because of the wrench to the economy on no-deal Brexit, the last thing the Bank of England would be doing is raising rates. But if sterling is in free fall, that means imported food prices will be going up.
Sure.
Inflation could well get triggered. So the Bank of England may well think, look, we've got a recession coming anyway. We don't want recession and inflation. We'll raise interest rates.
Right.
Stop this imported inflation, and we just have to bear with the recession. And if that happens, you will see mortgage rates going up.
And how about annuity rates?
They would go down as mortgage rates go up.
Okay.
There's a direct inversion there, which might indicate to some people, if they are nervous of a no-deal Brexit, or a form of Brexit that leads the pound to fall, they should perhaps do that transfer.
Okay. Listen, thank you very much, Tom, for your time
Thank
today.
you.
It's been fabulous to invite you here, and I'm glad you've made time for the vlog today. Hi, thanks for watching, and if I've said something of interest to you and you'd like to reach out to me and perhaps have an initial conversation or indeed arrange a meeting, you can do that in a couple of ways. One is to Google me and type in Phil Morris Wealth Management and find me on LinkedIn, or indeed reach out to me on WeChat, and the QR code is coming up right now.